You know, when I don't have anything in particular that I want to talk about during a week, or nothing from Destructoid or any of the people that I follow on Twitter, nothing they mention really jumps out at me as something that's worth expanding upon, sometimes I'll go to a video game news site and I'll just skim through the stories and try to find something, and sometimes I'll get inspiration from very weird sources, like I noticed that Gravity Rush 2 is coming out here soon, and also that Ubisoft recently confirmed that Beyond Good and Evil 2 is just entering pre-production, and something just clicks in my mind and goes, you know, these are two games that are sequels, and yet they're in very different situations. They have two very different mentalities surrounding their creation. I'm like, you know what? I know what I'm going to talk about this week.
Between Final Fantasy XV, Gravity Rush 2, and Beyond Good and Evil 2, I've been thinking a lot about sequels lately. For one reason or another, video game sequels are an event. Their announcements, releases, and very existence have even more pomp and circumstance built around them than the typical fare, and in an industry that's, for better or worse, already driven by hype. But why is that? While the answers may seem obvious, humor me for a few minutes. I just want to sit down and see what we can learn from studying the power sequels have, their place in the industry, and, most importantly, the developers who have both improved and ruined their universes through expansion. First things first, why are sequels exciting? Well, if you enjoyed the original, that means you're potentially getting more of what you already liked. People tend to criticize games that are just more of the same, but hey, sometimes that's all you really wanted. The really good sequels, though, the ones that go down in legend, do not rest on their laurels, however. They not only flesh out the world, but also the mechanics and systems from the first. The mentality is that we've had time to learn from the original, to figure out what worked and what didn't, meaning the next entry can only go up from here. And this is what your customers are going to expect when they see that big ol' number 2 next to the title. That's just gaming culture, so now the pressure is on the creators to deliver. And the questions start looking like, how does one go about making a good video game sequel? What are some of the common pitfalls I can avoid? And how do I recognize which parts of the original are worth expanding on? Well, the easiest answer to that last question is just ask. And believe it or not, the person you should start with is yourself. I know it seems kinda silly, but seriously, treat every project like a new one, even if it treads old ground in some ways. Try to remind yourself of what you were going for with the first game, what you wanted people to take away from it, and how closely their general reactions matched up to your vision. Not that you'll have a hard time finding that out, because the internet is a constantly growing hub of information. There are countless reviewers, let's players, and opinionated bloggers chomping at the bit for something to express themselves on. But if you did well enough to warrant a sequel, you might not even have to go that far. Ask your players for thoughts and impressions, your very fan base. Sure, different people will cite different things as their reasons to play, but get enough sources, and eventually some common threads are bound to start popping up. And once you feel like you have enough data, it's time to figure out what's next. Did people get it, quote unquote? Should you tweak things in the sequel to lean them more towards your creative vision? Or would it be more beneficial to just roll with the new direction? And if you have to do the second, ask yourself if you'd truly be happy working on a game like that. If your heart isn't in it, the end result will suffer, so you might just find yourself moving on to new things. But unintentionally, that might create a new problem as the years roll on. The original will now carry the weight of legacy. People are gonna remember an exceptional game, and especially as technology advances and our tools become more powerful, the imaginations of your audience will start to dream up something far grander than you could possibly deliver. Worse still, if you do decide to go back to it later on, the core team members who made the original what it was might not even work at the company that holds the rights to the IP anymore. This can lead to all kinds of problems, not the least of which being the sequel just failing to capture the joy and magic of the original. Without the original vision at least guiding the production, the new ideas might run in direct opposition to the tone, setting, mood, and even gameplay formula the previous titles established, and your fanbase will most definitely be expecting. And I swear I'm not going to turn this into another Let's All Pick on Star Fox Zero episode. I've had my go at that game already. Also, and this is a big one, consider whether or not you've already told the story you want to tell. Think about this. There are some games out there that are perfectly fine as completely self-contained experiences. If you want a few of my personal examples, Odin Sphere, Undertale, and yes, even Chrono Trigger all fall into that category for me. On that note, I'm frankly amazed Nier is becoming a franchise, especially considering... I mean, if you look this up, Dragon Ball Z was supposed to end after the fight with Frieza, and it shows. Many people consider that the pinnacle of the series. You remember that moment where Goku finally hit his limit, saw his best friend die, and turned Super Saiyan? Wasn't that a cool set piece? The legends, the build-up, the fact that this was the character we had been following since he was literally a child, and here it all comes to a head. Goku reached the absolute pinnacle and became the strongest fighter in the universe. And then business happened, retroactively flushing all the meaning and impact of that scene directly down the toilet. This is the danger of not putting your foot down and ending your story where you think it should end. And yeah, I know money is a tempting mistress, but consider this. Would you rather your series end on a high note and be remembered fondly forever, or refuse to let it die with dignity as it slowly starts to decay? Because that's how you kill the fan goodwill you worked so hard to build up in the first place. Just ask Black Butler fans what they think of Season 2. Like, you don't even go there. You might notice I'm not listing any video game examples here, and that's because I'm pretty sure by now you don't need my help pointing fingers. That horse has been beat to death for years, so in the theming of this discussion, I'm not going to step up and take a swing. Instead, we're going to take the more difficult route and highlight the games that got it right. Doom being a recent example. Contrary to popular belief, the monsters in this series can't talk, and if they could, what would come out of their mouths would sound like a cross between Androxus and Angry Joe. To make a good game in this series would be to understand that its core appeal is being able to do one thing over and over again, and everything from the weapons to the soundtrack, the setting, and even the mannerisms of the main character would have to be tailored around that to make it work. And I assure you, Doom 2016 really works. Oddworld New and Tasty isn't just a remake of the first game, it's a complete reimagining. It took the puzzle platformer formula the original captured way back when and refined it with modern sensibilities to make something that feels completely, well, new and tasty. Because while the original Oddworld is still charming, it has not aged well on the gameplay side. This release means that a whole new generation can easily hop in and appreciate the magic that Lorne Lanning created, without having to wrap their head around sense-outmoded design. Deus Ex is an interesting case. When you look at the original, you slowly begin to realize that it's less of a first-person shooter and more of an RPG. The modern games are also this, except that they fall more in line with the current definition most people associate with the term role-playing game. Which is fine. The core of Deus Ex is still there. It still tells stories of the potential dangers of evolving technology, and some of the hard questions we'll have to answer as a society as we become more reliant on our machines. And you can still go about answering those questions with as much force or subtlety as you like. You just don't have to wait like 10 seconds for your reticle to become small enough to actually hit someone. And you probably never will again. The closest thing you're going to get to that gameplay style is the System Shock remake that's being made right now, and I'm going to wait till that actually comes out to pass judgment on it. And we can't forget Banjo-Tooie, can we? Although that game has an almost unfair advantage in that by the very nature of collectathon games, making the world bigger and more interconnected was an automatic improvement. Whether it's well advised or not, franchises will continue to truck on. There are tons of previous cases on how to do this right or wrong, and I imagine there will be no shortage of future examples to study either. Which brings me to the sequels that inspired this train of thought to begin with. What do you think of these games? Cutting through the marketing and the promises made by their respective companies, using what you know now, are you still as hyped as you were before? There are benefits to seeing this industry through a designer's perspective sometimes, and while it does peel back the curtain and make things less magical, last I checked, nobody likes wasting money either. So, do you think these games have what it takes to be good? Let me know in the comments below.
So, one of the things that I miss now that I'm up here in Ohio is the fact that I am not involved with a lot of the animals that I was anymore. Yeah, I had to say goodbye to Bagel. I'm gonna miss that little you-know-what, but she had to stay in Arizona with the rest of my family. I do, however, have new pets that we're working with now. One of them is right here next to me. I don't have a letter to show off this week, so instead... Alright, I don't have a letter at the end of this episode, but I do have something arguably a little better. So, one of the big downsides of moving up here to Ohio is I'm not working with the specific animals that I was anymore. Yeah, Bagel is no longer going to be making appearances in these forum videos anymore. I'm gonna miss the little you-know-what, but she had to stay in Arizona with the rest of the family. As a trade-off, though, there are new ones. So, this one's name is Slinky. She does not want to let go of the couch here. She's kind of preoccupied at the moment. All she's really interested in right now is just getting petted. It's kind of that point in the month right now. All these two seem to want... I kind of took their old play place from them. This room used to be theirs, pretty much. They'd come in here and hang out a lot, and now I can't let them in because they tend to climb all over my shelves and knock my games all over the place, so that's gonna be an interesting dynamic going forward.
Yeah, you're gonna cause me nothing but problems in the future, aren't you? You're just gonna go ahead and climb all over this place and make me miserable, huh? Yeah, you are.